everyone. Welcome to our annual AIT Talks, where AR pioneer and VP of Product at Eighthwell, Tom Emmerich, will give us a sneak peek of his 22 for 2022 AR trends. My name is Diana Mendez. I am the marketing coordinator at Eighthwell. We are very excited to have all of you here today. And with that, I would like to introduce Tom.
Thank you, Diana, and hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here in what has become an annual event between you and I, where we take a look at the augmented reality trends that I will be watching this year. I've been writing my trends piece for wearable technology, AR and VR since 2015, if you can believe it. But it wasn't until 2019 when I started to use the format that you might be familiar with for my trends posts and my AR roundup, which I publish monthly. And so there I look at industry, hardware, platforms and tools, consumer and enterprise solutions, as well as ethics and human impact. I started to also write as many trends as there was in the year 2000s. And so in 2019, there were 19 trends. And now I am about to publish my 22 augmented reality trends for 2022, which will drop on January 31st. Both the post and the presentation are through my own voice as an industry expert. I've been watching and working in this space since 2009. And I have good news. The first is you don't have to take notes because I'm going to write this all down for you and publish it on Monday. Not just the trends that I have the time with you today to go through, but also the full 22. Also the good news is I was really excited to have this presentation. Originally, we had planned for 10 trends within the hour, but I've actually thrown in 4 more. So we're actually going to go through 14 of the 22 together. And so with that being said, let's get started. So 2022 will be another peak year for the metaverse and the metaverse at peak hype cycle, where the vision of this next iteration of the internet is, it seems so clear and it seems so close, but it's really a metaverse mirage. And what I mean by that is that I think will, as we strive to achieve that vision, will come to grips in terms with all the work that will be needed to really fully realize its full potential. As I wrote in my 2021 reality check post, which is the post that I write at the end of the year, looking back at these trends that I write in the beginning of the year, the metaverse is defined differently by different people. But for me, the metaverse is an aha moment. It's a realization by the industry and organizations and brands on what the next wave of computing truly could look like when the full stack of emerging technologies come together, including blockchain, AI, IoT, AR, and VR. I believe that last year was a watershed moment in that because of the pandemic, which fueled massive digital transformation, causing virtual to be the new normal. Brands and organizations saw the light, they saw the metaverse. It also came to be because of the accelerated investments and advancements in these virtual technologies. So much so that I think all of us that have been working in individual silos in blockchain and AR and VR and AI, I think we actually caught a breath. And I kind of akin this to being able to, pop our heads out of our individual cubicles to see what our colleagues were working on, and then finding out that we could collaborate together. And thus understanding that by putting all the pieces together, the metaverse can happen. 2022 for me is going to be a little bit more of the same of 2021 when it comes to the metaverse, an awakening of more brands to virtual being the new normal, and more brands wanting to be part of the metaverse, or at least launch and debut what I would consider more metaversal ingredients. This includes 3D, AR, and VR. And this is especially for the brands that saw their competitors get in early in 2021. So if you're tired of hearing the word metaverse, I'm really sorry, but I definitely see this term not going away anytime soon, especially this year. I'm going to shift gears from looking at industry-wide to augmented reality hardware. And we're going to start with a device that we've been carrying around for over a decade now, the smartphone. 2022 will see the smartphone become an even more powerful augmented reality machine, thanks to advancements in chips, displays, cameras, massive changes in form factors, like what we're seeing here with the Samsung Fold, as well as the support for the latest connectivity options. So keep an eye out for new chips like Apple's A16 with faster processing and a continued focus on high performing machine learning, foldable displays from Samsung, maybe from Google, which significantly increase the field of view for augmented reality experiences, and a huge focus on Wi-Fi 6E, which brings with it faster wireless speeds and lower latencies. And while the bigger bells and whistles will be what the OEMs go out with their flagship phones, I think it's also really important to watch the lower end phones start to get features that we saw that were game changers in 2020 and 2021, specifically around chips and connectivity, such as 5G, for example, because with augmented reality experiences in particular, reach and scale is important, and not everybody is going to be carrying around a flagship phone. Lower end phones that become more powerful means that more people have access to more powerful augmented reality. 2022, as I'm going to talk about in a second, is going to be filled with a lot of excitement, a lot of news around headsets and glasses. But if there's one takeaway from this presentation when it comes to hardware, is that if you're looking to have reach and scale, and if you're looking to tap into the consumer opportunity for augmented reality, the smartphone is where it's at. Continuing our look at augmented reality hardware trends for 2022, I expect that it will become even more clear this year the important role that the smartphone is going to play in our eventual head-worn future. And guess what? This role keeps the smartphone at the core, at the center of our daily lives. It's not going anywhere. And this makes sense for a number of reasons. And this is because having the smartphone connected to a pair of glasses allows you to offload the compute and the processing from glasses, which is helpful for battery life, heat, and also allows for more glasses-like form factor. But also, it's just not time for the glasses to cannibalize smartphone sales, but rather to reinforce smartphone sales, like what we're seeing with other wearables like smartwatches. This year, I expect that we're going to see a myriad of different connected eyewear devices that are reliant on smartphones. And I'm using this term connected eyewear because I feel that this year in particular will either hear or see debuted or even see launched, again, that myriad of different connected eyewear options that run the gamut of being glasses that just play a video or have larger heads-up displays, all the way through to augmented reality glasses. There will not be just one pair or one type of glasses launched to either the consumer or the enterprise space, as we're already seeing now. And so I suspect that this will be the case in 2022. And thus, my preferred term is connected eyewear to not confuse some glasses that don't do AR with glasses that do AR. In addition to powering augmented reality glasses, I also feel like this year we're going to see the smartphone become a necessary companion to AR and VR headsets. These are more these living room devices, mixed reality headsets, virtual reality headsets. We're already seeing this today with Meta Quest 2, which asks you to use your phone for casting, and also some games that allow for you to be in a headset and play with mobile users. Expect to see more of this, so that VR and also mixed reality, video pass through AR potentially or eventually won't feel so lonely. Right now, these devices are often one per household, very akin to early PC days. And so there's a need to include other people in that living room, either as a participant or a spectator. So if you've been following my trends posts for a while, or even just my social posts, I'm very, very excited and possibly overly bullish on mixed reality headsets, which enable both VR and video pass through AR. Listen, I've been hooked since 2015 when I went to CES and AWE and tried VRVANA and Sulon Cortex. Fun fact, both Canadian companies. It blew my mind. And last year in my 2021 augmented reality trends, I said that we would see a consumer mixed reality headset introduced to the market. I was kind of right. I'm just going to say kind of right. I'm going to cut myself some slack. What do we see? We saw a French-based startup, Lynx, blow it out of the water with a Kickstarter campaign for a mixed reality headset that is quite affordable. That's number one. But surprisingly, what we also saw is a VR headset that's already a consumer device became a video pass-through AR device, with Meta updating the Quest 2 with an experimental pass-through API to start to get developers acclimated to creating experiences with the headset in that mode. This year, I think consumer, or I'm going to call it prosumer, because the price point is, at least rumored to be quite high. Mixed reality headsets, again, targeted for the living room, not expected to go out into the everyday, all day world experience. I think will come clearer into view. We're going to get further details, possible confirmation from major players on devices that are coming very soon. I'm talking Meta, Google, Microsoft, Samsung, Apple. If you've been following the news, there's either confirmed reports, and rumors on all of these. VR devices have certainly paved the way for mixed reality headsets with advancements in inside-out tracking or headset slam. Supply chains for VR are going to come in handy for this, and much more. The market has been more educated on VR or VR devices, so much so that this was a banner year this past holiday season for Meta Quest 2, as we saw. That Wi-Fi 6E I talked about before, it's going to come into play here. That connectivity is going to help with speed, latency, and just overall network connection, which is going to be necessary for pass-through AR. And so while the early adopter in me really wants this headset under the tree this year, I'm going to claw back my enthusiasm and expectations for the official trends piece. And I'm going to leave it as, again, a year filled with a lot of news, possible confirmation, dates, specs, prices on devices that we expect would come to the market 2023 and 2024. So moving on from hardware to infrastructure, I've already spoke a lot about connectivity. Connectivity is key to unlocking next level augmented reality and virtual reality experiences. In 2021 in the US, we saw all three major networks have now nationwide 5G coverage, although not evenly spread out across the country, which was a huge achievement. We also saw flagship phones feature 5G, which is also important. But while there was major headway in the way of 5G, really wasn't the flavor of 5G, the frequency of 5G that we needed in order to really realize that faster speed, the lower latencies that we're looking for. This is where C-band comes into play. You might be hearing a lot about C-band. C-band was delayed, and just recently, AT&T and Verizon actually were able to turn on this new frequency. By the way, C-band has been in use in other places around the world for quite a while now, and it's the most popular 5G band. So here in the US, we expect 2022 to see one of the frequencies of C-band be rolled out to major markets in the United States. So again, not evenly spread out in the country, but it's not really until 2023 when we really see that flavor of C-band that we really want to kick up connectivity and performance to the next level. On the Wi-Fi side, we're seeing the opening of the 6 gigahertz band, which is the biggest spectrum addition to Wi-Fi since 1989. So Wi-Fi 6E, it supports a 6 gigahertz spectrum. It's going to bring faster wireless speeds. It's going to bring lower latencies. But just like 5G and 5G C-band, you're going to need devices that support this, including for Wi-Fi 6E, a router that supports this. So in addition to unlocking the ability for speeds greater of 1 gigabyte per second, that lower latency, which for mixed reality headsets for video pass-through in particular will come in handy, but handy just across the board. Another great benefit and feature of Wi-Fi 6E is more reliable connectivity, in that it's not expected for bandwidth to drop if a family member gets on Netflix, for example. And in that could bring a greater capacity for networking, which could allow for devices to be tethered or connected to each other, which I think will come into play. Okay, let's talk platforms and tools. So I've selected 3 trends that I just want to highlight within the platforms and tools category. And the first should come to no surprise. We're going to talk about the web, and it focuses on the growing role of the browser in AR and VR. And of course, here I have an unfair advantage as I'm witnessing firsthand the growing demand and use of 8Wall's tools to create web AR and web VR content. In fact, since our first full year in 2019, over 50,000 web apps have been created on 8Wall, with over 1,000 of these commercial experiences for top brands across industry verticals. And if you want to catch like a glimpse, just a small sliver of a glimpse of the massive amount of content that's being created in web AR, head on over to 8wall.com/discover. It's our new discovery hub. These are nearly 300 featured projects that were selected by our developers to be included in that catalog. So 2022 for me will be a major year for the spatial web, with web AR and web VR in high demand. And it will be in high demand for a number of reasons. One would be this metaverse strategy and this continued focus on the metaverse, and an understanding that a big part of the metaverse is centered around the browser. And especially a new understanding of a need to invest in owned metaversal touch points, which the web is best suited for. As well as, of course, just more proof points in the market, more brands and organizations using the web, and those intrinsic values of web AR and web VR being immediate engagement, low friction, flexible, and open to afford integrations with outside systems. I would also watch and expect changes in the browsers themselves, as well as ways to discover and stumble upon immersive web content, such as like the growing adoption of PWAs. Of course, on the platforms and tools side of things, we'll continue to see new features, new enhancements, which equip developers with more ways to create powerful augmented reality and virtual reality experiences for the web. And this healthy, thriving, growing new developer ecosystem of spatial web developers and designers are all getting ramped up and ready to populate the web with immersive content. So keep an eye out for more web AR and web VR content. Keep an eye out for the spatialization of the 2D web, with 3D and AR content becoming more of a staple. Keep an eye out for new complex spatial web experiences for headsets, like virtual reality headsets, and greater places for you to be able to discover these types of content. And also keep an eye out for interactive cross-platform content, which can all be accessed with a click of a single link, such as what we unlocked in November with Metaversal Deployment with our all new 8Wall engine. The second trend that I want to talk about in augmented reality platform and tools is this expectation of more complex and contextual augmented reality experiences, which will be unlocked by advanced tools being made available to creators and developers. A good example of this at the end of last year was when we saw Snap make use of LiDAR and equip their creators with the ability to scan and create custom land markers. This is now currently in beta. So things like this, or tools that enable experiences like this, really allow for more use of context of the scene. And therefore, these experiences feel more personal, they feel more extraordinary, they feel more connected to the real world, which is really the promise of augmented reality. So expect in 2022 to see platforms launch new features which give creators and developers more advanced tools around mapping, geo-mapping, spatial mapping, or what's also known as the AR cloud, and other machine learning models, and as well access to real-time APIs and other data feeds, which will allow them to create experiences that use a greater understanding of the environment and the people involved, as well as other happenings around the world or around that location, in order to create next generation contextual augmented reality experiences. The final trend that I want to highlight in platforms and tools today is centered around the creator and the developer. And I've featured just two amazing creators and developers that I put up details here that you should follow if you want to be inspired and really see how augmented reality is being pushed to its limits. The trend here, in 2019, I indicated it was the year of the creator. And if that was the case, if you believed that, I think that 2022 is around the year of value creation for creators and developers and the growth, health, and success of this critical community. So creators and developers are at the heart of our ecosystem, and 2022 will be a major year for creating and nurturing creator and developer value, with AR and VR developer ecosystem owners focusing on helping these individuals succeed and finding success. So keep an eye out this year for programs that facilitate matchmaking or other value-added systems, possibly even leveraging Web3 in some ways in order to nurture, support, and help AR creators and developers thrive. Okay, the final category that I'm going to move into is consumer solutions. And so I want to kick things off with ads. There's a sea change happening in the advertising space, and augmented reality plays a major role in the evolution of advertising. Advertisers and marketers have always been one of the first to leverage new emerging technologies. We've seen this with previous waves of computing, such as mobile and social, and it's no different for this one. 2022 will continue to see agencies, creative development studios, and brands continue to create branded augmented reality experiences as they have for a number of years now. And through this, we will continue to hear success stories of how augmented reality, in particular web-based augmented reality, is moving the needle for these brands across the marketing funnel. I mean, you can go to the 8Wall site to hear stories of 1 million plus user sessions, or 18% in experience click-through rate to a rebate, or a lift in sales in the magnitude of 4x for a specific collection that was featured in AR. But a new thing to keep an eye out on in 2022 is the massive change in display ads as they move into the next dimension. So if you are in the know on what's happening in the ad space, there is a lot of changes with cookies and privacy permissions and the ability to understand the user and be able to target users and provide them with meaningful content. Augmented reality is very unique in that it's intrinsically personal. When a consumer engages with an augmented reality ad, it immediately uses their environment or their face. Again, going back to the previous trend around contextual computing, that's really intrinsic to augmented reality. And in that way, then it becomes a really meaningful branded experience. And even the use of the word experience also really alludes to the fact that people are spending time engaging in it. They have to be active. And so in 2022, I would definitely keep an eye on the changes in the advertising space, specifically around new ad formats that make use of 3D and AR to be much more personal, to be much more meaningful, and also to really engage, in a meaningful way, consumers for a significant length of time. And if you caught our announcement at 8Wall just a week ago, we in an announcement that announced our partnership with Emodo, which is Ericsson mobile advertising solution, also raised up a new embeddable AR ad, which you're seeing an example here, which is just one signal that this is coming and it is part of the sea change again of the advertising space. So as always, it's important to not just get in early in order to realize that value that I talked about, but also as the advertising space is changing, it's important for you to ready your organization and your team for this spatial evolution. In 2021, I also wrote up about a trend all around QR codes. And I said that 2021 was the year of the QR code. I would argue that it certainly was, and it definitely was mainly fueled by the continued pandemic. QR codes have become a necessity in our everyday life, whether that's to go to a restaurant and scan it in order to access the menu in a touchless way, or to show a proof of your vaccine, or in order to enter a venue, for example. So QR codes have become so necessary in our everyday lives that a June 2021 survey from Statista said that 59% believe that QR codes would be a permanent part of using their mobile phone in the future. And in 2021, we saw a number of brands make use of QR codes attached to augmented reality. Pepsi printed QR codes on their cans and also presented it on television during the Super Bowl to lead to an augmented reality portal featuring The Weeknd. Here on screen, I'm featuring the VW Amazon collaboration where select boxes during the holidays were sent out with a QR code that led to an augmented reality experience. Molson Coors, Anheuser-Busch also using on-product QR codes to lead to portal augmented reality experiences. And in the UK, Harrods featuring an entire window where in the middle, there was like nothing but a QR code because that window was AR enabled. The trend here that I want to raise up is that I expect that in 2022, we'll begin to see the rise of always connected or always on QR code packaging, where the QR code becomes a staple on packaged goods and packaging, and it is a core element, and it's attached to a consistent series of augmented reality experiences that could be related to a campaign or just branded activities or branded experiences. This is really important. This QR code today is really helping to groom that behavior between the end user and a thing in the world, a product in the world, and helping them understand that there's a relationship between their phone and the product, that they can enhance their experience with that product using augmented reality. Today, we're using QR codes to trigger these, also to indicate that there is an augmented reality experience. In the near future, that might not be necessary. And at that time, again, that behavior will have been groomed so that you just expect that you can point your phone at different things and get an AR result. So while users are beginning to expect AR experiences tied to things, I also see in 2022 that they'll expect the same for places. With the pandemic, hopefully, becoming or getting to a point where we're able to go out and do things and things start to open up later in the year, there will be a growing focus on augmented reality consumer experiences that encourage and even incentivize people to safely return to the outside and to outside places. Shared, persistent, anchored experiences in parks, in stadiums, and retail spaces will start to pop up, showcasing what has been coined the real world metaverse. And this will all make use of those advanced tools that I talked about just earlier in this presentation, where creators and developers are able to create next level, more contextual experiences that make use of the environment. So 2022, I think will bring back and see a resurgence in location-based entertainment, or what was known as LBE. And this example here on screen is Dreamground, created by Samsung. It was launched late 2021, which is an AR-enabled park in New York City. One of the cool things about augmented reality is that an AR experience can often, be experienced anywhere, or it can only experienced in one place. And here I'm talking about really strengthening the need to be at a specific place in order to experience that augmented reality and content. And this could also be combined with time. So layering in that scarcity of location and time could really help drive, consumers and people to a specific retail store or a game at a stadium or a park in order to have a potential shared, persistent augmented reality experience that they can do together that is extremely out of this world. E-commerce and virtual try-on and or virtual tryout, it's not new per se. We've heard and we've seen some examples of this, but I think the major trend for 2022 is that we'll see more and more retailers embrace AR as part of their e-commerce strategy, where it's starting to become more of a pillar rather than an experiment or for those that were early adopters. In this way, this trend also speaks to how platforms are especially allowing for integrations with existing APIs such as CMS, purchasing systems, and other ERP. You may have caught the news from Snap yesterday that was along the same lines. For web development, you've always been able to incorporate outside APIs. And so 2022's greater adoption of AR-enabled e-commerce, I think, is going to be driven by the fact that there was this massive digital transformation that happened in 2020 and 2021 due to the pandemic. And so that catch up, I think, has allowed for them to understand what that obvious next step is. As well, there's actually a lot of proof points out there around the use of augmented reality with commerce. Including, I'll tell a story around Saatchi Art, which is featured here. So Saatchi Art is using 8th Wall to power over 1 million works of art to allow for consumers to view that art in their room, which helps them with their purchasing decision. It increases confidence. And then when they get it to their house, it should also reduce returns. This was a first of its kind production grade deployment created by Rock Paper Reality, which was designed and architected for scalability. And it worked across the entire site. Each piece of art in augmented reality is dynamically scaled based on the metadata of that artwork that was available as part of that e-commerce offering. And it was deployed into AR on a 3D canvas with approximate real-world dimensions of the physical artwork, again, to help facilitate that buying decision. So I think, not just more folks using AR for e-commerce, but thinking about that, this scalability, this production grade deployment, the use of existing systems meeting augmented reality. This is the trend that I see coming together. What was the results? Well, Saatchi's been so generous to share some results of the use of this WebAR feature. Consumers who purchased on SaatchiArt.com who used the View in My Room feature spent on average 17% more than those that purchased without. And consumers who used the View in My Room WebAR feature were 4 times more likely to purchase than those that did not use the AR feature. And again, this is just one stat of many that you can find in my AR Roundup or just online from various players in the space that are really showing how augmented reality is moving the needle for business. Okay, I have 2 last ones before we start to open up for Q&A. So if you want to start getting your questions going, we have the Q&A function enabled in Zoom. It looks like I'm talking at a blazing fast speed, and so we may have possibly 20 minutes together just to talk, which I love. And again, hopefully you're not frantically writing everything down, because this is all going to be published in an article on Monday for you. Okay, the 2 last trends that I want to talk about on the consumer solution side. The first is all around digital identity, specifically avatars. Huge trend. So our digital identity has always been important in our digital activities, but for the most part, it's been us and the use of us as our profile picture. It's been very, very much like our human selves brought to the table. The trend here is the embodying of a digital entity or an avatar to represent you in the virtual space, and this is the major trend for 2022. While not potentially 3D, keep an eye on the use of NFTs as profile pictures. It's a really clear signal in starting to use non-you as your representative self within these existing social networks. As well, it's really interesting when you dive into Ethereum name service for Web3, which is your Web3 username, and see how you're able to configure a record for your avatar, which would allow for you to bring the avatar into decentralized apps, or what's also known as dApps. And then we have systems like Ready Player Me, which is being featured here, which allows for you to create and essentially, for the most part, own your avatar and bring that avatar into various partner experiences that they have partnered up with as part of their network. This year, we'll see a growing importance to have a digital double. If you are in gaming already, if you're Gen Z, you probably already have this avatar through Roblox or Fortnite, although those are closed systems for now. And so this year is about getting your digital double, finding your digital double, establishing a relationship with your avatar, understanding also that your avatar can be fluid, and it's okay to change your avatar in order to match and meet your multifaceted self, or even kind of play around with not being yourself. A lot of things to unpack here with digital identity. But the other kind of paired trend to this is that once a mass amount of users continue to adopt avatars and have relationships, see themselves as avatars, care for these avatars, it unlocks a twinning of our economy, a virtual twinning of our economy. And this is already happening. We saw a lot of this in 2021. Oftentimes when people talk about the metaverse, this is what they're focusing on. And we saw luxury goods in particular, Gucci, for example, getting into the space, understanding that that you're able to sell, you're able to have your brand be represented not just here in the real world for real people, but also in a virtual world for these virtual people as well. So this is a major trend that I suspect will continue to flourish in 2022. So speaking of goods and virtual goods, the final trend I want to highlight is the role augmented reality will play this year in NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, as well as virtual goods. I say virtual goods because sometimes a virtual good is not an NFT. So I'm talking about them both. 3D and AR is on the roadmaps of many NFT collectibles. And so if you've been buying NFT collectibles, you're on Discord, you're able to get access to the roadmap for the collection. And I don't know how many times I've seen 3D version of that 2D NFT on the roadmap. And so this is something really to keep an eye on. It's a way for these collections to differentiate, especially as more collections come to the table. Also keep an eye on AR first NFT collections, such as what Jadu is doing, which is phenomenal. You should be watching what they're doing here with hoverboards and 3D AR characters, again, to differentiate and also to give it some use. So the use of 3D and augmented reality with NFTs brings these digital goods that you own into the real world, whether this is the ability to put, like Saatchi Art, a picture of your NFT on your wall and take a picture of it, or place these now 3D characters that have been unlocked in your space to take a selfie or interact with in some way, or maybe even potentially becoming your avatar. All of this is, I think, things that should be watched. In addition, I think alongside all this is really looking at virtual goods that aren't aimed at your avatar, but are aimed at yourself, but they're virtual only. They're virtual first. There is no digital version. And I'm specifically talking a lot about virtual fashion that can only be experienced in AR using augmented reality lenses, for example, or augmented reality enabled physical goods, such as hoodies and t-shirts and hats that are pretty much blank with the QR code, but come to life with augmented reality. Avatars, NFTs, virtual goods, these are major ingredients for the metaverse, or metaversal ingredients. As I mentioned right from the top, the metaverse hype cycle lives on. And so I would definitely expect to see a lot of activity in the space as well. There's a lot of opportunity to be had, immediate value to be had, as well as a lot of learnings. So I definitely encourage you to take a look. Okay, well, folks, we blazed through 14 of my 22 augmented reality trends for 2022. The full post goes live on Monday, January 31st. I will not commit to a specific time, but it will go live on Monday. If you subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter or my review newsletter, which is, they're both pinned on my Twitter page at Tom Emmerich, you can get this sent to your inbox. Today, we went through industry, hardware, infrastructure, platforms and tools, and consumer solutions. Just a few of the trends. There's more trends in each of those categories. I also will touch on in the post enterprise solutions, as well as ethics and human impact, which is really important. But if you're looking for something to read this weekend and you have a lot of time, I have already posted my reality check for 2021. Which again is my way of keeping honest to the trends that I put out there at the top of each year. So at the end of every year, I go back and look at those trends to understand, did they propagate? How do they manifest? And this year, the post was so long that I ran out of characters on LinkedIn and I had to create a PDF report. So if you go into the article, there's a download for a free PDF report. It not only makes it a little bit easier to read, in my opinion, but it also includes suggested reading for each of the trends. So as I go through and explain, how, if, or why the trend actually came about, there's also some suggested reading for you to ramp up on the space. With that, I want to say thank you. Thanks for taking the time to be here. I really appreciate it.